Hello and welcome to our Bible study here at the First Baptist Church of Meridianville on this Thursday, March 18th, 2021. Today we continue in our study of the Psalms, and we are in Psalm 102. It is a psalm that I have entitled a Psalm of Desperation. Last week, Psalm 101 was a psalm of determination. Psalm 102 is a psalm of desperation. Look at how the psalmist says it in verse 1. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and let my cry for help come to thee. Do not hide thy face from me in the day of distress. This very week, I have come across so very many people who are in various kinds of distresses. Distress is a common experience in this life. And the psalmist experienced it some 3,000 years ago. And he says, Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to me. Don't turn away from me in my distress. Now, we don't know what is going on in the life of the psalmist. We do know that whatever it is, it has created a sense of spiritual urgency. He needs an answer to prayer, and he needs it now. Reminds me of the child who came running in from recess to their teacher. And the little boy said, Miss Johnson, there are two boys fighting on the playground, and the one who's on the bottom wants to see you right now. Well, I understand that. The one who was on the bottom was in distress. He was ready for his teacher to show up. The psalmist says this about his situation. He says, my days disappear like smoke. In other words, I'm wasting away. My bones burn like coals. In other words, I have a fever. My heart is sick like withered grass. He's saying I'm weary. He says, I've lost my appetite. I'm skin and bones. I'm losing weight. He says, I'm like an owl or a lonely bird. In other words, I am a pitiful picture of a human being. In verse 7, he says, I can't sleep. He says, my enemies taunt me. He says, I weep. And he, in a sense, blames God because he says, you have swept me up and cast me out. What would cause a feeling like this? We don't know, but the psalmist's distress has certainly created physical problems. Many of the types of problems that lead us to prayer are relational in nature, but physical problems tend to be at the top of the list. Most hospitals have prayer rooms where family members can pray for individuals who are in distress. Years ago, when we were in Panama City visiting Laura's parents, we had met there. Jeffrey was small. He was 4 years old, and he got a huge splinter in his foot on the swimming pool deck. And I asked him, do you want me to take it out or the doctor to take it out? Because it was really deep. And his reply was, I want God to take it out, which was a very spiritual answer for a 4-year-old. And so we went to the doctor. It was a terrible experience. They had to dig that splinter out of his foot. And we got back home to the condominium, and I was carrying him to the elevator. He was worn out. I mean, his little head was laying on my shoulder, and he was still in his little swim trunks from being at the swimming pool that day. And there was an older man that walked up about the time we were going to get on the elevator. And the man looked at Jeffrey and said, now there's a boy that's worn out from playing on the beach. And Jeffrey, without missing a beat, simply raised his head and looked at the man and said, I've had some footwork done. In other words, I'm worn out, not from being on the beach, but I am worn out from a desperate circumstance. Likewise, we know what it means to be worn out by a desperate circumstance. And, I don't think any of us welcomes distress. That would be odd if we did. But the New Testament teaches us that spiritual growth is directly related to us trusting God through times of distress. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Dear brothers and sisters, when trouble comes your way, consider it an opportunity for joy. For you know when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. That means spiritually mature. James makes a direct connection between deepening spirituality and life's difficulties. So this morning or evening, whenever you're listening to this, think of the times of greatest distress in your life. A lost job, a serious illness, a threat to your family situation. It's amazing how many those times, those heartaches, are the ground in which faith and spiritual maturity grow. So you say, well, I'm in one of these times of distress right now. What should I do? I'll give you 3 brief encouragements. First of all, seek God. Just like the psalmist, seek God in worship, in study, in service. Seek God. I recently had a church member write me because one of their college-age children had gone through a time of distress. They had come to church on that particular Sunday, and the message that day it was like God Almighty had written that message directly for them. When you are going through a time of distress, the last place Satan wants you is church, because he knows God Almighty will speak to you. How should you respond to difficulty? First of all, seek God. But then secondly, request prayer. I read about one man years ago who was falsely accused of a terrible crime. He said he was so distressed that he could not pray. He said, during that period of time in my life, I had to depend upon the prayers of others. Seek God. Request prayer. Don't be like the lady who was in an automobile accident out in Los Angeles, and her car was teetering on the edge of an interstate. Almost, it was about to fall off an interstate. And so her car is teetering on the edge of this interstate, and the paramedics arrive, they stabilize it, and they start trying to cut her out of the car. And a TV reporter interviewed one of the paramedics. And the TV reporter asked him, well, what was the situation like? And he said, you know what? It was the craziest thing. The entire time we're trying to cut this woman out of her car, the entire time she's yelling at us, leave me alone. I'll do it myself. Leave me alone. I'll do it myself. Don't be the person who is in distress and who bottles it up inside. Find somebody to pray for you. Seek God, request prayer, and then finally rest in God. Be reminded that God Almighty can change things that seemingly can't be changed. One of my friends started a business years ago in Birmingham. Had a great business. It was a phone business. And he invited, someone recommended 2 other men to him to go into business with. So they all ended up in business together. But then the day came that he found that these 2 other men had been embezzling money from the company. So he just said, okay, we're dissolving the partnership. You go your way, I'll go mine. And y'all, they sued my friend, and my friend lost. Even though they were embezzling money from the business, my friend lost the case, and it shut his business down. And he was unable to do business in the state of Alabama due to a non-compete agreement or something like that, even though he was in the right. And he told another one of his friends about it, and his friend knew a really good lawyer. And so he talked to that lawyer, and that lawyer said, you know what? These things never get overturned, because even the state Supreme Court is very reticent to overturn a judge's ruling in the state of Alabama. But my friend said, well, just, at least give it the old college try. So this new lawyer appealed his case. And my friend was on a softball field playing church softball in Montgomery when he got a call on his cell phone, and it was a lawyer saying that the Alabama Supreme Court has just given you your business back. They overturned the ruling. And my friend told me, he said, Tommy, I used to tell my wife, Claire, I used to tell her, only worry about things that you have control over. He said, now I tell her, don't worry about anything because God is in ultimate control of everything. God is greater than a judge. God is greater than a lawyer. God is greater than any situation we're going to face. So just trust God. That's pretty good advice, biblical advice for all of us today. I want to thank you for studying with me today. We're going to continue these studies in the Psalms on these Thursdays, and I look forward to more of it this coming week. So God bless you and have a great day.